The first time I heard the door open, I blamed the wind. That's what you do when you're alone in a new place. Translate the unfamiliar into something ordinary, so your mind doesn't start building monsters out of silence. It was 3:27 a.m. I remember the time because I had already been awake, staring at my phone like it was a lifeline. I'd moved into the house 6 days earlier, and sleep still felt like something I had to negotiate for. New neighborhood, new sounds, new shadows, the kind of quiet that isn't peaceful yet, just empty. The house was a rental, small, 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, a narrow hallway that led from the living room to the bedrooms like a corridor in a cheap motel. Beige walls, old carpet, doors that didn't quite align in their frames. The landlord had called it charming. I called it cheap. That night I was lying on my back when the sound came from down the hall. A soft click. Then the slow, unmistakable drag of wood against carpet. A door opening. Not a slam, not a burst. Something careful. Controlled. I held my breath. The sound stopped, and the silence that followed felt deliberate, like the house itself was listening to see if I'd noticed. My hallway had 3 doors, the bathroom, the guest room, and the closet at the very end, an empty hallway closet with a warped bottom edge that scraped the carpet whenever it moved. That scrape had a personality. Once you heard it, you could recognize it anywhere. That's what I'd heard. I didn't get up the first time. I stayed in bed, eyes wide, waiting for a second sound, a footstep, a sigh, anything that would turn it into proof. After maybe a minute, the reverse happened. Wood dragging again, softer, then a click, the door closing. I lay there until my heart slowed, then finally convinced myself it was the house settling. Temperature change, pressure, a hinge shifting. When you want to sleep, you can make anything make sense. The next morning, I checked the closet door like a person checking a stove knob. It was closed. The frame was normal. The latch worked. Nothing looked disturbed. I opened it and stared into a space so empty it felt like a joke. Just drywall, a thin shelf, a carpeted floor with a few dust lines where old boxes used to sit. No attic hatch, no panel, no vent big enough for anything except air. I laughed once, a short, nervous sound, and went to work. The second night, I woke up at exactly 3:27 a.m. No alarm, no dream, just a sudden sharp awareness like someone had flicked a switch in my head. I checked the time on my phone. 3:27. And then, right on cue. Click. Drag. The closet door at the end of the hallway opened again. This time I sat up. From my bed, if I angled my head just right, I could see the hallway. Not clearly, the lights were off, but street light glow from the living room window bled down the corridor in a faint, gray line. At the end of that line, I saw it. The closet door was open about 6 inches. Exactly 6. Not a guess. My brain registered the gap with weird precision, as if the number mattered. I stayed frozen, staring. Nothing moved. No shadow crossed the gap. No sound came from inside the closet. Just the door open, like someone had changed their mind halfway through closing it. After a long minute, I got out of bed. I walked down the hallway slowly, barefoot, trying not to let the floorboards betray me. I stopped 2 steps from the closet and stared at the gap. Darkness inside. Stillness. I put my hand on the door and felt the wood. Cold. Not night air. Cold. Something else. Like the door had been in a different temperature than the hallway. I pulled it open fully and flipped the hall light on. Empty, back wall visible, shelf bare, dusty carpet, nothing. I shut it firmly until the latch clicked. Then I went back to bed and left the hallway light on, because my pride meant less than my nerves. The third night is when it stopped being something I could explain to myself. At 3:27 a.m., I woke up again. I didn't even check my phone this time, I knew. The click came, the drag came, but this time there was something else. A faint shift from inside the closet, like weight adjusting. Not the sound of a hinge, not a settling creak. It was the sound of something inside a small space trying to be quiet while it moved. My mouth went dry. I sat up slowly. The door was open again, 6 inches. The darkness behind it looked wrong. Not because I could see something, because I couldn't. The closet wasn't deep, 3 feet maybe. The hallway light from my bedroom lamp should have been enough to show the back wall as a lighter rectangle within the darkness. But the darkness looked thick, layered, like it had depth it shouldn't have. I stared until my eyes hurt, and then the door opened 1 more inch, on its own. Wood dragging softly. 7 inches now. My body went cold. I stood up without deciding to, like my muscles were on autopilot. I took 1 step into the hall. The door stopped moving. I took another step. A long pause. Then a soft exhale came from somewhere down the hall. Not loud, not theatrical, just breath. Human breath. I backed up so fast I bumped the bed frame. My chest tightened, and for a second I thought I might be hearing my own breathing echoing off walls. But the exhale had direction. It came from the end of the hallway, near the closet, as if someone was standing just inside the gap. I reached for my phone and turned on the flashlight. The beam cut a hard white line through the corridor and hit the closet door. The gap looked the same, but the darkness inside didn't react like normal darkness. Usually a flashlight floods a closet and you see dust in the air, the back wall, the corners. This time the beam seemed to stop halfway in, swallowed like it had hit black velvet. I didn't move closer. I didn't call out. I just stood there with my phone shaking in my hand and waited for something else to happen. Nothing did. After a full minute, the door began to close. Slowly, carefully, dragging against carpet until it clicked shut, like it had finished whatever it came to do. I didn't sleep after that. The next morning, I bought a cheap camera, one of those indoor security cams meant for pets. I told myself it was for peace of mind. But really, I needed proof that I wasn't inventing this. If it was just the house, the camera would show it. If it was something else, at least I wouldn't be alone with it. I set the camera on a shelf in the hallway, angled toward the closet. I made sure it had a clear view of the door and enough night vision to see the gap if it opened. That day at work, I kept checking the feed, like a nervous habit. The hallway looked normal in grayscale, still, empty, boring. That night, I didn't go to bed. I sat on the couch with the lights off and watched the live feed on my phone. At 3:26, the hallway camera showed nothing. At 3:27, the camera audio spiked, the closet door moved, not thrown open, not pushed. It eased outward the exact same amount as always, 6 inches, then stopped like it had hit an invisible mark. My heart hammered. I held my breath, watching. The gap stayed open. The camera's night vision showed the hallway clearly, the carpet, the baseboards, the bathroom door. But inside the closet gap, the darkness was still wrong. It looked like a hole cut into the picture. Then the camera microphone picked up a faint sound, a soft scrape, not from the door, but from inside, like something shifting behind the darkness. I leaned toward my phone as if closeness could make the pixels confess. And then on the screen, the darkness inside the closet moved. Not like a person stepping forward, like depth changing. The back wall should have been visible. Instead, the gap looked deeper for a second, like the closet had expanded inward. The darkness receded like a tunnel. Then the camera feed flickered. One frame of static. And the closet was closed again. My body stayed frozen for a full minute before I realized I'd stopped breathing. I inhaled sharply and tasted panic. I replayed the recording. The door opened. The darkness deepened. The static. The door closed. Nothing else. No intruder caught. No clear shape, just impossible geometry. The fifth night, I called my friend Nolan on speaker while I watched the feed. Nolan was the type of friend who didn't laugh immediately when you said something weird. He'd ask questions first, then decide whether to mock you. "It opens by itself?" he asked. "At the same time," I said. "Every night, 3:27. Maybe a draft. It opens 6 inches every time, like it's measured." "Then put tape on the floor," Nolan said. "Mark it. Or put something in front of it. Like a chair." I tried a chair, I admitted. It still opened. Just pressed the chair and stopped at 6 inches like it didn't want to push harder. Nolan was quiet for a moment. "That's not normal." "I know." "Do you have carbon monoxide detectors?" he asked. "I'm not joking." "I have one. It's fine." "Okay," he said, carefully. "Then either someone's messing with you, or the door frame is warped in a way that, I don't know, but the same time every night is what's weird." "I recorded it," I said. "Send it." I did. Nolan watched it on his end. "You're right," he said after a pause. "That darkness looks wrong. Like a filter." "Like a hole," I whispered. "Yeah," Nolan said. "Like a hole." That word stuck to my brain. Hole. Not just a closet. Not just a door. A hole. The next day, I asked the landlord if anyone had ever complained about the closet. He frowned like the question was an inconvenience. "It's an old house," he said. "Doors shift." "Has anyone ever had issues with that door opening?" He laughed, dismissive. "Doors don't open by themselves." "Mine does," I said. He shrugged. "Put a doorstop." I bought a doorstop. A thick rubber wedge. That night, I jammed it under the closet door and pressed hard until the wedge felt fused to the carpet. I also placed a strip of painter's tape across the door seam, like a cheap tamper seal. Then I went to bed, determined to prove something. At 3:27, the camera audio spiked again. The door tried to move. The rubber wedge held for half a second, then slid back, as if pushed from inside with steady pressure. Not a kick, not a shove, a patient force. The door opened. 6 inches. The tape tore cleanly, as if sliced. I sat up in bed, heart racing, and stared down the hallway with my naked eyes. The closet door was open. The wedge lay slightly displaced, like it had been gently nudged aside. The hallway felt colder. And from the gap came that same sound. Breathing. Slow. Controlled. Like someone holding their body still while their lungs worked quietly. I didn't move. I couldn't. Then I heard something I hadn't heard before. A whisper. It wasn't a sentence. It wasn't even a word I could understand. It was the shape of speech, without meaning, like someone trying to speak but choosing not to. My eyes watered. I felt a hard nausea rise in my throat. The closet door opened 1 inch more, 7 inches, then 8. I couldn't stop staring. The darkness inside didn't brighten. It didn't reveal the back wall. It remained thick, deep, wrong. And then, very slowly, something happened that shattered my last piece of denial. A shadow crossed the hallway light. Not from outside, from inside the closet gap. Something moved between the darkness and the hallway. A figure, tall and thin, not fully stepping out, just shifting enough that its outline became visible for half a second before it retreated. My entire body seized. My brain screamed to run, but my legs stayed locked. The closet door began to close, slowly. Back to 6 inches, then 5, then 4. As if whoever was inside had realized it had shown too much. Click. Closed. I don't remember getting up, but suddenly, I was in my kitchen with every light on, gripping my phone like it might save me. I watched the camera feed again. The video showed the door opening, the wedge sliding, the tape tearing. It showed a darkness that swallowed light. It showed the shadow shift, and it showed something else. For one frame, one single frame, there was a face in the gap, not clear, not detailed, but enough. Pale skin, eyes reflecting infrared, expression blank, like a mannequin. Then static, then closed door. I called the police. I tried to explain without sounding like I belonged in an institution. "Someone is in my house," I said. "I have footage. They might be hiding in the closet or the attic." "You're in the house now?" the dispatcher asked. "Yes," I said. "Lights on. Door locked." "Stay on the line," she said, and her voice got sharper, more real. 2 officers arrived within 10 minutes. I met them on the porch because I didn't want to be alone inside. They entered with flashlights and calm, trained posture. They checked rooms, under beds, behind doors. They opened the hallway closet. Empty. One officer shined a flashlight into it, and this time the light behaved normally. It hit the back wall. It revealed dust. It showed nothing but a shallow, empty space. "You sure this is the closet?" he asked gently. "Yes," I said, feeling my face burn. "It changes at night." The officer raised his eyebrows like he'd heard everything from ghosts to neighbors with keys. "Show me the footage," he said. I did. They watched the recordings on my phone. They didn't laugh. They didn't dismiss. The younger officer leaned closer at the frame with the face. "That's," he started. "That's creepy," the older officer finished. They checked the door frame. They checked the lock. They checked the ceiling hatch to the attic in the hallway. Something I hadn't even noticed before. A painted square panel that blended with the ceiling. "Do you ever go up there?" the older officer asked. "I didn't even know it was there," I admitted. He pulled it open carefully. Dust drifted down. The attic smelled like insulation and stale wood. He shined the flashlight up, and then he paused. He said. The younger officer stepped closer. "What?" "There's a path," the older one said slowly, "in the insulation." My stomach dropped. He climbed a step ladder and pushed his head up into the attic, flashlight beam sweeping. The younger officer stayed below, hand on his radio. The older officer's posture stiffened. "There's stuff up here," he said. "What kind of stuff?" I asked, voice thin. "Bottles," he said. "Food wrappers. A blanket." The younger officer swore quietly. They called for backup. More officers arrived. They searched the attic space carefully, moving along beams, pushing aside insulation. They found evidence of someone living up there. An improvised nest of blankets, empty bottles, a small lantern. They found a bag with clothing inside and a phone charger plugged into an extension cord that ran down into a wall cavity, like someone had been stealing power. but they didn't find a person. The attic had vents, tight spaces, areas that narrowed into darkness where a determined person could hide or move. One officer found something that made my stomach turn. A small notebook tucked inside a plastic bag, pages filled with scribbled times, 3:27 repeated over and over, not just as a number, as a ritual, as if the time mattered to whoever was doing this. The older officer came down, eyes hard now. "Listen," he said. "Someone has been in your attic. That's not a question. That's a fact." "Then where are they?" I asked. He didn't answer immediately. He looked at the hallway closet door like it had become suspicious too. "We're going to secure the attic hatch," he said, "and you should not stay here tonight." I didn't argue. I went to Nolan's apartment that night with a backpack and my laptop and the kind of exhaustion that feels like poison. Nolan didn't make jokes. He didn't say, "I told you so." He just listened while I explained the attic and the notebook and the repeated time. "Okay," he said when I finished. "So someone's been living up there?" "Yes," I said. "But the closet—" "I believe you," he interrupted. "I do, but we need to separate two things, the real intruder and whatever the camera was showing. Because those might be the same thing, or the intruder might have been messing with you." "How could they mess with what the camera shows?" I asked. Nolan shrugged. "Mirrors. IR reflectors. Weird stuff. People are creative when they want to scare someone." That explanation almost helped. Almost. But it didn't explain the way the closet looked deeper at night, like it wasn't obeying the house's geometry. It didn't explain the coldness of the door. It didn't explain the way the darkness swallowed my flashlight. And it definitely didn't explain why I woke up at 3:27 every night like something was pulling me out of sleep. The police kept investigating. The landlord suddenly cared a lot more once "intruder living in attic" became a sentence that could destroy his rental business. He replaced locks, secured the attic hatch, installed a camera near the roof access, promised inspections. He offered to let me out of the lease. I took it. I moved out within a week. Most people would call that the end of the story. But life doesn't work like that. Your body keeps the clock even after you leave the room. The first night in my new apartment, second floor, newer building, no attic, no hallway closet, I woke up at 3:27 a.m. Not because of a noise, because the time had become a scar. I lay there and told myself, "It's over. You're safe." Then I heard a sound from my bedroom closet. A soft click, and the slow drag of a door opening. 6 inches. Exactly 6. My throat closed. Every hair on my arms rose. I turned on the lamp so fast my hand shook. The closet door was open. My apartment closet wasn't warped. It didn't scrape. It didn't have the same hinge sound. But the gap was the same. 6 inches. I stared at the darkness inside, waiting for it to behave normally. It did. It was just a closet, clothes hanging, a back wall, ordinary depth. But then my phone buzzed on the nightstand. A notification from the camera I'd installed in my new living room. Something I set up out of habit, out of trauma. Sound detected. 3:27 a.m. I opened the live feed. The living room was empty. Then, at the edge of the frame, near the hallway that didn't exist, a shadow moved, just slightly, as if something had stepped behind the camera. The feed flickered once, and for one frame the camera showed a different hallway. My old hallway. Beige walls. Old carpet. And at the end of it, the closet door open. 6 inches. I dropped the phone. My body couldn't decide what it was feeling: fear, disbelief, rage, nausea. I picked it up again with shaking hands and replayed the clip. This time it didn't show the old hallway. It showed my new living room. Normal, empty, silent, like the frame had never existed. I didn't sleep that night. I sat with every light on until sunrise, listening for a door that didn't belong to this apartment. The closet in my bedroom remained open 6 inches the whole time, as if it didn't know how to close itself. In the morning, I told myself the clip was a glitch, cached footage, app error. My brain hungry for patterns. But when I went to close the closet door, my hand froze on the knob. The wood felt cold. Not room temperature cold. Different. Like it had spent the night touching something that wasn't my apartment. I closed it hard until it latched, then placed a chair in front of it, like a ridiculous barricade. That night, I did not stay home. I went to Nolan's again. I didn't even explain the new incident fully. I just said I wasn't ready to sleep alone. Nolan didn't push. He just nodded like he understood a kind of fear you can't solve with logic. At 3:27 a.m., his hallway closet door opened. Nolan's apartment didn't have a hallway closet. We both heard the click anyway. We stared at each other in the dim living room light. Nolan's face went pale. "Did you—" he started. "No," I whispered. The sound came again, a slow drag, like wood against carpet, from a place that did not exist. Nolan stood up slowly, heart pounding visible in his throat. He turned on every light in the apartment. We searched every room like idiots in a horror movie, opening doors, shining phone flashlights into corners. Nothing. No open door, no closet, no explanation. At 3:28, the air felt normal again. The apartment settled back into silence like nothing had happened. Nolan sank onto the couch, breathing hard. "Okay," he said quietly. "Okay, that's not you. That's not your house." I didn't answer because my throat had turned into stone. The next day, I did something I hadn't done yet, because I was afraid of the answer. I went back to my old house. Not inside. I didn't have keys anymore. But I drove there and parked across the street like a stalker. The house looked normal, quiet, sunlight on the roof, a new family's car in the driveway, curtains in the windows. I watched until night. At 3:20 a.m., I sat in my car with my phone recording time like proof. At 3:27 a.m., the hallway light inside the house flicked on, then off, then on again. And for a second, in the front window, I saw movement. Not a person walking through a room. A shadow, sliding across a wall like something passing behind it. My mouth went dry. My hands gripped the steering wheel so hard my fingers hurt. At 3:28, the light turned off. The house went still. I drove away shaking. I didn't know what I believed anymore. I didn't know if the intruder had been caught, or if the house itself had become a kind of mechanism that repeated something every night, like a wound reopening. I didn't know if my brain had attached itself to that time and was now hallucinating a ritual into every quiet space. But I knew one thing that made my blood cold. That door wasn't just opening. It was marking time, like a signal, like an invitation. And the scariest realization came weeks later, after I forced myself to live normally again, after my new apartment began to feel almost safe. I woke up one night at 3:27 a.m. and didn't hear anything. No click, no drag, no door. I lay there, confused, almost relieved. Then my phone buzzed. A message request from an unknown number. No name, no picture. Just a blank profile. The message contained one thing: a photo. Grainy. Black and white. Like night vision. It was my old hallway. The closet door was open 6 inches. And in the gap, clearer than ever, was a pale face, upside down, eyes wide, looking directly at whoever held the camera. Looking directly at me. Under the photo was a single line of text. "You listened." I didn't reply. I couldn't. My hands shook so hard I nearly dropped the phone. I blocked the number. Then another message came from a different unknown number. Same photo, same line. "You listened." I turned my phone off. I sat in the dark and felt something I couldn't name settle into my chest. Not panic this time. Something colder. Understanding. Because it didn't matter where I moved. It didn't matter how many locks I changed or cameras I bought. The ritual wasn't tied to one house. It was tied to attention. It was tied to the simple human instinct to listen when something opens in the dark. That's all it needed. Not belief, not fear, just awareness. And once you give it that, once you learn the time, once you wake up expecting it, once you stare down the hallway waiting for the gap, you become part of the pattern. You become the person who wakes at 3:27 without alarm, without reason, like your body is keeping someone else's schedule. Sometimes I think the intruder in the attic was real. I know he was. The evidence proved it. But I also think something else was using the same space. Something that didn't care about insulation or food wrappers. Something that only needed a door that could move and a person who could hear it. Because doors don't just open. They open for a reason. And if a door in your house opens at the same time every night, always the same amount, always with the same careful patience, then it's not an accident. It's a test. A signal. A reminder that the quiet hours belong to someone else. I don't sleep with doors closed anymore. I know how that sounds. People tell you to close doors at night for safety, for fire, for peace. I can't. Because a closed door feels like a promise it might open. An open door is honest. It doesn't pretend. So I leave my doors open, because I'd rather see the hallway than imagine it. But even with doors open, sometimes I wake at 3:27 a.m. and feel my body go still. Not because I heard a click, because I didn't. And silence, I've learned, can be worse than any sound. Silence means it opened somewhere else, in someone else's house. To someone else who will wake up confused, check their phone, listen down the hall, and stare at a door that is open 6 inches like it's waiting. And if they keep listening, if they keep watching, if they teach their body the time, then eventually, one night, the door won't stop at 6 inches. Eventually it will open wide, and the darkness behind it won't look like a closet anymore. It will look like depth, like a passage where the back wall should be, like a place that doesn't belong to the house, a place that belongs to the hour. And the worst part is, you'll do the same thing I did. You'll step into the hallway, you'll shine your light, you'll tell yourself you're being rational. And the moment you look into that gap, the moment you give it your full attention, you'll feel it. Do what it was always trying to do. Not scare you, not hurt you, just teach you a new routine. 3:27 a.m. Wake. Listen. Watch. And become part of the pattern. Because the door doesn't only open in your house. It opens in the dark spaces between houses. And if you learn to listen for it long enough, eventually you'll realize something that will make your blood turn cold. It isn't opening into a closet. It's opening into wherever it goes when you're asleep. and it's waiting for the night you decide to step through, just to prove to yourself it's real. That's why, whenever I see a hallway now, I can't help counting doors. I can't help noticing which ones scrape the carpet, which ones don't quite fit their frames, which ones might open slowly without making a loud sound. And every time I check the time at night and see 3:26, my whole body tenses, because it's not the door that scares me anymore. It's what happens to you when you start expecting it. Because expectation is how it wins. It doesn't need to break in. It doesn't need to force anything. All it needs is for you to listen. And once you do, it knows you're awake, it knows you're watching, it knows you've learned the time. So if you wake up tonight at 3:27 a.m. for no reason, don't check your phone. Don't look down the hallway. Don't listen for the click. Because if you listen carefully enough, you'll hear it. A slow drag of wood. A door opening. Exactly 6 inches. And then, from inside that gap, something breathing quietly. Like it's relieved you remembered.